I am a huge Spider-Man fan. Since I was a kid, it has always been about either Batman or Spider-Man. And I know those are the two most basic choices for favorite superhero, but I was obsessed with them. I started loving Spider-Man since I watched the very first Sam Raimi film in theaters, and from then on, I was hooked. Since that point, I've watched every movie that has come out, each one, of course, making me cry. But unfortunately, when it comes to the video games, I haven't really kept up. The only real experiences I have with Spider-Man games has been the new Marvel games, including this one, and Spider-Man 2 for the GameCube. I tried a couple in between, but nothing really felt as good as Spider-Man 2 as a kid, but to me that all changed when Marvel's Spider-Man came out in 2018. And that game to me felt like the perfect Spider-Man game for the web slinging, the city, the story. It just felt like I was a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. I ended up 100%ing it as well as obtaining the platinum because I just did not want to put it down. I felt the same way with Miles Morales game. Yes, I agree with most people that it was a little short for a full game, but I still did enjoy the content it gave to me. I mainly wanted to state all of this because these games made an outrageous expectation for Marvel Spider-Man 2 because I kept thinking, how are they going to improve on what I thought was a perfect to near perfect game and experience? So I guess now we have to get into how I thought that Spider-Man 2 met my expectations in my casual gamer review. And if you are new to my channel or this series, you may be asking yourself, what is a casual gamer review, Mr. Voice Guy, who honestly thought he could audition for a Spider-Man role that went to Tom Holland? Well, I can tell you in this simple, scripted fashion. I call my reviews casual gamer reviews because I am just that, a casual gamer. I usually drop games at the first sight of boredom or maybe even frustration. That is until recently when I started to stream playthroughs on Steam. Come on over, hang out, it is usually chill and fun. I made a deal with myself and that was to at least play through the main story and make a review of the game at its face value. And whatever the game makes me want to complete on top of that will of course help or be added to said review. This review of Marvel Spider-Man 2 will contain spoilers of the game as well as the previous two games because I feel like it affects my score enough that I didn't want to leave it out, and I don't trust myself to leave out footage of gameplay that could possibly spoil it for the people who want to play it. So if you want to avoid those, goodbye, but if you want to stay because you've played it or you don't care, let's hang out. And now let's get into that review. I think one of, if not the main aspect I look forward to most for Spider-Man games is how good the web slinging will be as I'm traveling through New York or wherever the setting takes place. The first game I thought was already great, but somehow in this game it has improved. It feels more fluid and fast. You can even turn down the assistance sliders for the web slinging to truly test your skills because now each mistake could have repercussions. I saw a lot of people try this out. I, for one, did not want to because I didn't want to traumatize every civilian whenever I would splat in front of them on the concrete. They also added a new way to travel, and that is web gliding. At first, I was just kind of about this addition, but as I kept using it, it felt more and more natural to switch between slinging and gliding, and when they were both used correctly, traveling the map felt so easy, there was never really a hassle of it. And even though there is a fast travel system that you can obtain in each district after completing a certain amount of missions, I never really wanted to use it until like close to the end game, just because of how much I thoroughly enjoyed the traversal system that they made. Because of this too, I would just do each side quest and collectible available to me on the way to each story mission. And doing this made me have a lot less to do once I reach post game, which of course we'll talk about later. But in my opinion, the web slinging is kind of perfect, which I say now until they released a new Spider-Man game that will somehow improve upon it again. And combat has changed from the first two games as well. Instead of having a wheel of gadgets to cycle through, you now have 4 abilities and gadgets respectively to equip and use at all times. I am glad that they cut back on the gadgets because I felt in the first game, if you were in a pinch, you could just open the wheel to slow time down and select a gadget that could easily get you out of a bad situation. Now with only the 4, you will have to use each wisely as they of course need time to be refilled. I am glad they added abilities, especially different ones for Peter and Miles to help differentiate them in combat. My main complaint with having the abilities is that it can make some of the boss fights easier, But overall, I enjoyed the addition to them. I also like that once you unlock all 8 abilities for each Spider-Man, you can now choose the loadout you want to make combat as best of an experience for you as a player. I think the stealth was overall about the same as the previous 2, apart from losing all of the gadget choices that I talked about earlier. The main addition was the web line to make stealth, or at least having more options to perch off, a lot easier. I, of course, enjoyed combat so much that I would mainly charge in and fight rather than stealth it out, unless it was for a story mission. But I think that is just a positive for how good and fluid the combat is, and not necessarily a negative towards stealth. But I do like that both are good enough that you have a choice of what you'd rather prefer to tackle in the game. One of the things I was looking forward to most in this game, to me, is the story. Again, I have to keep comparing it to the first few games, but going into this, I thought, again, how would they top the first one? And I think they did a pretty good job at it. Not only did they give a compelling story for Peter Parker, but since Miles is now a crucial part of the game, they would have to give him the same consideration. And I thought for the most part, there was a decent balance. If you played it, you would understand that reference. While playing it, I thought there were more important or more of a quantity of Peter Parker missions, and there probably was. But when I thought about it more after playing it, it was probably done on purpose. This was the closing act of not only as Peter the mentor and Miles the mentee, but Peter as our main Spider-Man and protector of New York. We are now seeing the reins getting passed on to Miles, and I don't think Peter will be out of the picture, but I think the next game, the roles of important missions will be switched. I could be wrong though, but that's just what it feels like to me. But everything that happened in this game, to me, was such an experience. Like we all knew from teasers and trailers that Venom was going to be in the game eventually. Even with that thought in my mind, they still made Kraven feel like a huge force until Venom showed up to handle business, which made Venom feel like the biggest bad we have ever faced in this universe. To have a villain like Kraven I don't know why I said Kraven like that, to have a villain like Kraven that we as good guys weren't able to really take down, to see some force come by and just wreck him was just fantastic. We also can't forget that we had that opportunity to play as Venom and absolutely crush Kraven. It felt pretty awesome, and it was absolute perfection. And a little side tangent from all of that, I need to point out as well that the voice acting, especially by Jurgen Lowenthal, who is Peter Parker, really made the experience what it was. I think a Spider-Man should make us feel what he feels, because he is supposed to be one of us to meet that anyone can be under the mask philosophy. But man, he really had some crazy moments as Peter in this game. Thank you so much, Sasuke Uchiha.
I am an Avenger. That means I must be stronger than my prey.
With all the story building and the voice acting, all of it put together, it gave us probably one of at least my favorite end sequences in an action game, in my opinion, where I was just glued to whatever was happening and wanting to see what happens next in every moment. But man, that fight was insane. All the sequences, the button mashing, and you and Miles teaming up, it was just the best. There's just too many moments to talk about from this game, but I need to say the good portion of them takes place in the side missions. Like, we get a new way to reveal Carnage that I did not see coming, which hopefully gets done in the DLC. We get a tie-in to the Spider-Verse films. We fly around the city with some birds that made me feel emotions I didn't want to show on stream, but God, the heart-wrenching music and the whole thing, it was a lot. But I think it's important to add these special moments outside of the main story, because it makes it crucial to take part in and finish. I would have been upset if I would have been talking to a friend and they say, "What about that Carnage reveal?" And I hit him with like, "The what?" Granted, I already had in my mind that I was going to complete all of this, but because of how good and how different each branch of the story missions were made, it made it feel so refreshing to grind them. It never felt like any kind of chore to me. I actually wanted to do every single mission to see what it was going to bring to the table. And because of what I said earlier about completing each mission or grabbing each collectible on the way to story missions, I didn't have much less to complete before the final mission or even after the story was over, because there are a few missions that aren't unlocked until you finish the main story. A good example of this are the spider bots that are only revealed when you are close to proximity of them. By the time that I had to finish collecting them for the trophy, and I had, of course, the rest of the side missions completed, I only had like 4 or so left to complete. So I think I really only had to play like for another hour or two to fully 100% and get my platinum trophy once it was all over, which was great because it was like I was productive the whole entire time, and I never felt like I was going out of my way to do these things. I was just doing them on the fly. Whenever they were available to me, I was like, let's go do that right now. It was great. We also get somehow more customization options in this game as well. We now have 3 skill trees to upgrade from: Peter's, Miles, and now a combined tree. I am glad they did it this way, because some upgrades should be different depending on the Spider-Man, because they have different abilities and combos and whatnot, and they should overall feel different. And they usually do. Between web slinging and combat, they honestly feel completely different when you're playing both of them. We also can't forget the suits, which somehow also has more options than the other games. We get suits from those previous games, new suits for both of them, as well as different color choices for almost every suit that you can choose from in the game. And this made it so awesome. There was many suits I've played for in the past few games where I was like, oh, I don't want to use it again, but with the new colors, it's like, it's practically a whole new suit in itself, and you can color coordinate your suits with each other, and it just makes it really coordinated. It makes you look like more of a team, because I don't want to be like gold and the other one be pink. It would just kind of offset it, so I could make them look exactly the same. I think my only complaints for the suits was there just wasn't enough game, I guess, to wear each one for a long period of time, because man, I like 90% of the suits, especially with this new feature to make the suits the colors that I want. And there's like a bunch of other stuff that I don't want to go on a long rant about, but there's just so many other positives in this game. Like, did everyone else notice that the longer Peter had the symbiote suit, the more alien it looked and the more angry it actually get, and it was just attention to detail? Or, Scream was also part of the game out of nowhere, and they made it make sense and actually had value to it. I know they changed like who the user is or whatever, but it made sense to the story. And I'm glad that they did something different with Venom. I know they've put it on Harry before. I just kind of expected that they were going to go down the same line as most Spider-Man stories do and find Eddie Brock, and it was making me worried too, because we're getting towards the second or the last third of the game and we still haven't seen Eddie, so I was getting worried that they were going to shoehorn Eddie Brock into it, but they didn't. They put it on Harry, which was the smart thing to do for the world that they were building. And that goes on to my point that I'm glad that they are not following the same story beats as every single other Spider-Man story. Like, again, the whole Carnage reveal, did not expect that. And I think that's how it should be. Like, we're building a different timeline, so we should be doing different stuff. Some things are similar, yes, but some things should also be different. And do I have some negatives for the game? Sure. I do wish it was longer. But saying this, I don't know if I am even considering this a short game, or I'm just trying to make any excuses to play this game longer. But I guess now I just wait for DLC to see if it was worth it, or if it should have just been involved with the main game. But again, I've only played the main game so far, and at face value, it's great. I also had several bugs or glitches, none that really made me super frustrated, but I did have to restart from my last save or checkpoint once or twice, which I only got annoyed with at one point because I just cleared a whole warehouse, and then I just had to redo it again. But now I have another excuse to beat up a bunch of bad guys with this great combat. And I think I'm just this way with every Spider-Man game as well, but I just don't enjoy the crimes all that much. They kind of just get boring a little bit, but I'm glad in this game they didn't make it crucial to do crime missions to unlock certain things. They were just kind of making it a way to get either more experience or more tokens. So you never really had to do the crime missions, which I'm happy for, because when I was trying to get the Platinum Trophy in the first game, completing all the districts and doing just crimes, it kind of just got boring. And I was getting worried there was going to be the same thing for this one. But I didn't have to do that, so it was great. But yeah, I thought this game was a near perfect experience that I wish didn't end as soon as it did. I just hope the DLC and the next game in this series can continue producing what they have been. All of this said, I am giving Marvel Spider-Man 2 my casual gamer rating of 9.8 out of 10. I think this is definitely my highest score in the series. That probably won't be topped for quite some time, but I guess we'll have to wait and see, because I didn't think Star Wars would get topped this fast, but here we are. Only negatives I had for the game, again, was this should be longer, a couple glitches here and there that are probably fixed by now, and the crimes, which you don't really have to do. I hope you guys enjoyed me fanboying over this game for this whole time. I hope you like and subscribe, and even check out my previous or future projects. Get down in the comments, maybe talk about how much you like this game, or, you know, if you disliked it, let me know and tell me why you didn't like it as much as I did. But you're not wrong, I'm not wrong. We're all having a good time playing video games, right? Let's all hang out. Anyways, hope you all have a good day. Bye bye.